Welcome to the Phat Games Podcast, Episode 2, Part 1. In Episode 2, Gary and I provide another update on Kids of Karendow, and we have some interviews lined up. In Parts 2 and 3, we will be interviewing each other. Remember to stick around to the end to hear more of Gary's music on Kids of Karendow Radio. Finally, if you'd like to support the development of Kids of Karendow and the creation of this podcast, please consider becoming a subscriber on our Patreon. The link is in the description. Also consider liking and subscribing to our channel. We hope you enjoy the show. Hi everyone, welcome to the Phat Games Podcast, Episode 2, I think Part 1. We will likely break this up into a few parts like we did for the first episode. So to introduce myself again, my name is Blair.
Oh, my name is Gary. You know what? I think we really need some sort of like intro music to these podcasts.
So I play the Phat Games logo music on the intro segment.
Oh, did you? Okay, I didn't notice that.
In Episode 1 I didn't, but in Episode 2 and 3 I did. Or Part 2 and 3 of Episode 1 I did.
All right, that works.
Anyway, how you doing today, Gary?
I'm doing all right. I just had a long day at work, so I'm gonna consider this kind of my wind down time, if that makes sense.
And when you say wind down, do you mean wine down?
Nothing that funny. I actually made myself an old-fashioned, so I'm quite enjoying that right now.
I am actually quite a fan of the old-fashioned. Unfortunately, tonight I am drinking Chardonnay.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I think I could say that this is the best one I've ever made.
Well, that's impressive. You'll have to make me one day when we're actually able to reunite in the great nation of Canada or the US.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I would very much love to come to New York. New York's an awesome city.
It is. And maybe one day international travel will be easier and this COVID stuff will go away. It would be awesome, right?
Yeah, that's true. Gotta walk around with a Bill Gates microchip inside me, and then I can probably pass the border.
You get some 5G. I'll connect you to
I'll
exactly, use a 5G hotspot.
Yeah.
So
we can edit that comment out.
I want to do as little editing as possible. So whatever happens, happens. I mean, it sounds stupid. Who cares?
We're gonna be candid here, I think.
Last episode I rambled a lot and I had to edit some of that out, but we'll see what happens this time. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna start this episode. So this episode, again, we might break it into 3 parts. Gary and I are gonna do our video game update, our Kids of Karendow update again, and show you some of the stuff we've been working on. And then we are going to interview each other. And that's kind of a prelude to what's coming up on the podcast, because we've actually invited some of the New York indie gaming scene to join our podcast, and we can interview them. We've got a few people lined up already, but not just New York. We've got some people actually from all over the world, but generally indie game developers of varying levels of, quite frankly, success. We're hoping to bring on the podcast and talk to and have some interesting conversations. But with that said, we are still going to make sure we show our viewers or listeners rather, how we're progressing on Kids of Karendow, and but also make sure you guys find something interesting along the way. That didn't make any sense, but whatever. And we're going to continue along with some type of music component towards the end, whether it's Kids of Karendow music or if it's any of your guests' music. We'll be playing something regardless. So I am going to, again, share my wonderful screen on Zoom. Unity. So last time you joined us, I was working on a boss, and that was the Lucky 13 boss. I've mostly finished that. So this time I'm going to show you what's called Chateaugoya Forest, which is where the second resistance base is in the game. And there are some best practices that can be followed for creating forests in 3D games. I don't really know what they are for 2D games. So this prefab ended up being massively huge. It's actually over 100 megabytes. So I got issues when I was checking into GitHub. I actually had to use the large file extension when checking this in. and saving it takes between 5 to 8 minutes. And again, my laptop is very old, so I'm sure on a newer laptop that would not be an issue. But I'm going to show you this region of the game. It is actually a pretty important part in terms of the story. It is taking forever to load. If I am.
Did you click load?
Do you see the spinner thing? It's
Nah.
trying.
I'm just trying to be a jackass.
Yeah, maybe we'll edit that out. I don't know. Have any jokes, Gary?
No,
Oh, you suck.
you swallowed. We're gonna keep that one. We're gonna keep that one.
Anyway, God damn you, Gary. Gonna drink this nice wine while this thing hopefully eventually loads.
Is it not loading because I guess you were saying it's large?
100 megabytes. Maybe that has something to do with it, and the fact that we're streaming, so the resources on my computer are kind of constrained.
So where is?
I'm gonna stop sharing.
Tell me where Chateauguay Forest is, because that
so
seems
after you leave. Okay, that's weird. I can't minimize while I'm recording. Chateauguay Forest is immediately after the resistance base caves. So you come out in this forest, you follow a path up to Rachna Delta, and then if you remember, oh, it just loaded. All right.
Nice. Hey, I see your cat in the background.
Where'd he go? Oh yeah, he's on the counter. All right, I'm gonna start sharing screen again. Well. All right, so this is Chateauguay Forest, and Gary and I were just talking of the portion we edited out. You come into this forest as you're running away from an invasion from Karendow troops, from basically military troops chasing after you because you were in the resistance base. So you leave the resistance base, you go through these caves, and you come out in a forest. And this forest is actually supposed to lead you to another resistance base called Rachna Delta. And Karendow troops have already made aware of the existence of Rachna Delta and have beaten you here. So there's a small entry like forest area that you walk up to, and then you come up on these flaming trees and debris. And this is where you, and Rachna Delta is supposed to be through this, but you never actually see it because it's been completely destroyed. And this is where you meet Misha, and this is when Misha joins your party.
Is this the same forest in the original game, or was that a different forest that we had in the original game?
No, this is brand new. I mean, there was no Chateauguay Forest in the original game.
What forest was in the original game?
There was Segregin, and there was the Segregin Forest, and there was the forest leading between the border town of Kessel, which we totally stole from Star Wars, and Delahar.
What was that forest called?
We didn't give that one a name. It's not that I remember. Maybe it was Segregin. Maybe it was. I can't remember.
Okay. I guess you don't.
I don't. I'm sorry, G. Do you?
We can edit all that out.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. So what Gary's trying to reference is Segregin Forest was the forest that you go into between Karendow, or between Kessel and Delahar, between nations of Karendow and Athalar. But Gary is referencing a forest that we called Forescan Forest.
Not we named that one?
It was Phil. It was Phil.
Okay, so it wasn't us. Okay. Cool.
No, it wasn't us. I believe that was Phil. We removed a lot of the sexual references from this version of Kids of Karendow. So anyway, back to Chateauguay, which is very Japanese. So there's a cutscene here where you meet up with Misha. She joins your party. She tells you what happened, and the Karendow troops are still in pursuit. So then there's this other region, or other area of the forest, much bigger, that you were running through. So you start up here and I'm going to zoom out so people can see how big this actually is. You're going to make your way from here all the way down here. And that's when you hop on a canoe. And there's this whole fog stuff like this just because on the canvas. This will appear over top of you. So the fog's rolling in, and all these red dots you see on the map as I zoom in are these drones. So maybe I will
So I
actually
take it
show
those
you.
are the baddies that you
These
fight.
are the baddies. They don't fight these. There's gonna be enemies in here as well. They're not in yet. Oh crap! I have to remove the event, but whatever. So I'm gonna remove the map object. Okay, come on. Which one of them? All
So
right.
they're
So
just basically props on these drones since you don't fight them.
no, they move around, and if you walk into the area of the light, it's like one of those. A lot of how games when you're trying to like be stealthy, and if you get
Oh,
caught
I
by
see.
something,
Okay.
you have to restart. So this is the stealthy area of the game, where if you get caught by one of these drones, you have to restart. And there's gonna be two different areas. So there's a bunch of drones, like there's 14, I guess. I didn't realize they added that many. Because the quiz, so that if you get caught by any of the drones up here, you get returned to the entrance. And I break it up and you get caught by any of these drones down here, you get returned to roughly here. And the quiz baby, which is down here, asks you how many drones will send you back to the entrance. And the answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you are listening to this and remember that answer, there's the answer to the quiz baby's question.
Yeah, that'll also end up on some Russian game.
Or Chinese site, you never know.
Yeah, what are those? What do you call those? Those game cheat sites.
Yep. So and there is going to be enemies in here too. They're not in here yet. They still have to. They're kind of. Some of them are actually palette swapped enemies from earlier in the game. We're going to put more Pandaka troops in here, and some other giant rat enemies. But they're also going to end up in the overworld as well, which is why they're not in here yet. They're scheduled for next sprint to get completed.
Next sprint. Do you think people know what that is? Know what that means?
Okay, so if you're looking at, yeah, you're right. They don't. Well, first of all, if you were an agile game developer, or sorry, no, an agile developer in general, or a software engineer who's familiar with agile methodology, you'll know what that means. So this is not directed towards you. But for those of you who don't, when you're working on a project, any project, doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't have to be IT or game related or anything. Just if you're doing a project and you want to like track progress, you can set up a number of tasks that you want to achieve in a specific amount of time. Usually though, a sprint in agile methodology is between 2 to 4 weeks. And you're trying to achieve those goals or finish those tasks. And the thing about agile is it's supposed to be agile. If you don't, you can like then pick it up again another sprint. And so on and so forth. You can sort of break up, and these things are typically called user stories or just stories. And these stories basically equate to tasks. And I don't know if that's making much sense. Gary, does that make sense? Am I doing good?
For all you kids listening, I am so sorry to put you through that. Anyways, let's move on.
Okay, that's a great response to that. We don't really need to, yeah, we don't need to go in more detail. Okay, Gary. Well, that's all I've been working on. This forest area took a ridiculous amount of time because there was far too many prefabs with these trees. I had to like pare this back because I mean it's a forest. There's like literally hundreds of trees in here, and that was a pain in the ass. So, but I'm going to turn this over to you.
Actually looks pretty good.
So when you're actually zoomed in the game, you actually
Yeah.
So this is roughly what we'll see in the game.
Like even zoomed out, it doesn't look too boxy, right? So I think it looks really good.
Oh, it's
just
not boxy,
kind of,
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's really good.
Yeah, that was the goal. Now we need to see how well this performs, which I'll be doing. I don't know, this weekend or next, but we'll figure it out. Music, Gary, you got any updates on the music front?
Yeah, so I guess the last thing that I sent you is I guess where I'm at with the resistance-based music.
And that was shared on our second episode of the podcast.
I went. I wanted to ask you what your opinion was in terms of the length of it, because I was thinking it was going to be a little bit longer. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
For the small resistance base, I think it's good. But for the larger resistance base, we're going to be spending a lot more time. I think we should have something longer. So
Okay.
maybe, as you were mentioning last time, we should potentially break that up into 2 different songs.
Yeah,
along the
I
same
think
line.
that they're going to end up being, I guess, kind of like 2 different songs. Probably they'll kind of contain the same kind of themes, but I think I want to stylize the one that's actually at the smaller resistance base a little bit differently. I think I'm going to kind of go with a little bit more of a synth wave type of feel for the smaller one. I want to get your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, that's
Think it'll
great.
work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it will. Cool. All right, G, do you want to go into part 2 then?
Sure, whatever part 2 means.
Okay. So we're gonna end part 1 right now, and we'll play more of Gary's awesome music that he's created. Thanks for listening to episode 2, part 1. Next week on part 2, I will be interviewing Gary. If you'd like to support the development of Kids of Karendow and the creation of this podcast, please consider becoming a subscriber on our Patreon. The link is in the description. Also consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now up, we have Darkness of Karendow, which plays during several cutscenes that features the game's antagonists. We hope you enjoy it.